self-promote. I'm a very good-looking guy. I'm an idol of some. I'm a brainless idiot. I'm a psychopath. I'm unstable. I'm a curmudgeon. I'm an animal. I'm a tyrant. I'm a physical peon. I'm a man. I'm incompetent with women. I'm one of the great Casanovas of all time. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a coward. I'm a nutshell.
Welcome to Terminate Crashes Out, an NBA podcast with Justin Terminate. Brought to you by DC, LA. And now it's time for Terminate to Crash Out.
All right, it's time for Terminate to crash out, and it's a little after 11:20 Eastern time. Spent all day in front of the television. In fact, my dog here, Zuzu, is looking at me, thinks I'm absolutely crazy because it's 4 days or 4 hours on the couch, more than 4 hours on the couch, I guess. I guess it was about 12 hours on the couch because we sat down for the pregame around noon Eastern time for the first game between the Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we'll try and touch on all of these games. We just got done with by far the worst game of the evening. That was the Lakers over the Rockets, 107 to 98. And again, this is a series that typically, this is what bothered me heading in, even prior to the Kevin Durant injury, is this is probably the series that you would have normally stuck on NBA TV if we're still doing that, or at least worthy of it. And then instead, it's treated as the primetime series just because it features Kevin Durant and LeBron James, when really neither one of these teams has a shot of winning the NBA championship. So to me, if we're counting down the series, maybe the only one that I would say I have less interest in is Phoenix at Oklahoma City, because they're going to run away with it easily, will Oklahoma City. And then I would say the Raptors and the Cavaliers as well, because I also view that as being significantly one-sided. So I didn't really have much interest in this series heading in. And then on top of that, we get the news today that Kevin Durant is hurt, and that makes it even worse. And again, Luke Kennard was fantastic, 27 points, 5 of 5 from the field. LeBron, 19 points, 13 assists, 8 rebounds, so he almost had a triple-double. He really controlled the pace, and that was one of the differences in this one. Think about it, because it was going to come down to the supporting players on Houston without Kevin Durant. They didn't even have an offensive player as good as Luke Kennard, and I kept thinking while I'm watching the broadcast and the game unfold, Luke Kennard, Rob Pelinka goes out and gets him for a second-round pick at the trade deadline, and Luke Kennard was the difference in the game here this evening. And just having the ability to knock down a bunch of threes, one of the great shooters in NBA history, of course. And then when you team him up with LeBron, who's one of the great passers in NBA history, it led to a lot of open looks. But Pelinka goes out, makes a deal at the deadline, brings in Kennard. Rafael Stone does nothing in the front office for Houston, and that was really one of the major differences here. But again, a lot of the steam taken out of the game tonight just because you're missing the 3 leading scorers. Durant for Houston, and then Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic for the Lakers. And the Houston offense is brutal anyway. I mean, think about the issues that we've had with Houston up to this point in the season. Houston gets into a tight game. They're one of the worst clutch time offenses in the entire league. I think they're 5-9 in games decided by 3 points or less here this season. Just because the offense really is just Kevin Durant dribbling at the top of the perimeter, no movement whatsoever. Then you take Durant out of the mix, and obviously it's going to be even worse. And the thing that sticks out is this team just didn't have many reps without Durant this year. Guy was second in total minutes throughout the course of the entire season. He only missed 4 games. So in every tight spot Houston has been in this year, every important game, they've had Durant out there on the floor. Juxtapose that to like Denver, for example, who we saw play earlier today. Jokic missed 16 games in a row when he got injured. In Boston, Tatum missed most of the season. Jaylen Brown missed about 10 games due to rest. Durant missed 4 games all season. So they're accustomed to having him out there on the court. Even when he's out there on the court, The offense is not looking good. And here's the concerning part for Houston. One is they're just not as good as the Lakers when Durant's not out there. That's one. So the injured Lakers are better than the injured Rockets. But two is if Durant's going to sit out, knowing the competitor he is and that he only missed 4 games all season, you know it's a significant injury. If it's something that he could have fought through, he would have been out there. So that makes me feel like he's going to miss more than just 1 game. Because if, is he going to heal that much in 2 days? Probably not. So that tells me it's a really significant injury if Kevin Durant is going to sit out. And then the other question that you could ask, I know it's a knee contusion, but maybe we should have rested the guy at some point throughout the course of the year. Instead of, at the age of 37, he's second in total minutes, only behind his teammate and Amen Thompson. And then if Durant is not going to play, guess who's going to have to step up? Alperen Şengün. And let me just check out the box score here. Şengün, and you could tell this by watching, but I'll give you the numbers to back it up. 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 of 19 from the field. So if there's no Durant, Şengün's got to be much better than that. He just wasn't. For an offense that's bad anyway. And, I wasn't really thrilled about this series heading in anyway. The part that's disappointing is I felt behind Jalen Brunson, the guy facing the most pressure in the postseason this year was going to be Durant. Not that Durant needed to win an NBA championship, but Durant at least had to get out of the first round after not being able to do so the last 2 years in Phoenix. 2 years ago, got swept in the first round by Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. This past year in Phoenix, last year in Phoenix, he doesn't even make the top 10. So I was really looking forward to, hey, Durant, a little pressure. He's got to make it out of the first round. Even with LeBron, it would have been fun to say, all right, LeBron's shorthanded here. Can he get past Durant? And if he did, you give him a couple of extra points. But if Durant's not going to play in this series, then you don't even give LeBron extra points for getting out of the first round. But it really didn't even feel like a postseason game. These two teams probably would have lost to any of the other teams that played today, the other 6 teams, outside of maybe Toronto. Toronto wasn't very good. So we started there with the worst game. Now because I want to hit on all 4 of them. So that's game 1 of Lakers-Houston. Hey, listen, at the very least, even if Durant comes back, LA wins 1 game. That buys some time for both Austin Reeves and Luka to get well and to be back at some point later in this series. So even if Durant comes back, and even if Durant comes back and plays well, even if Houston wins the next game, what this did is it extended the series just a little bit. All right, so that's Lakers and Rockets as we try something new. Welcome in, Termini crashes out. We try something new here, doing a post-game show and wrapping everything up, okay, after 4 games. And again, none of the games were thrilling. I thought this last one stunk. I thought the first one stunk between Toronto and Cleveland. The Denver-Minnesota game was all right. The New York-Atlanta game was all right as well. So why don't I address here next Denver, Minnesota. We'll go with what the best game of the day was. Denver wins 116-105, and even this one was a double-digit affair. All of them decided by double digits, which kind of stinks because you want a close one or two. Outside of Houston and LA, by the way, that was not decided by double digits. That was 107-98 Lakers, but the game still wasn't great. Denver and Minnesota. And here's how big this win was for Denver. This is why this is a really big win for Denver. Jokic didn't play well. Jokic got the triple-double. I don't think anybody that would argue that Jokic played well in this game. So that's one. Denver wins despite a bad Jokic game. Denver wins despite Aaron Gordon picking up the 3 personal fouls 11 minutes into the game. He had to come out about a minute and a half left in the first quarter. So you get a bad Jokic game. You get Aaron Gordon with 3 fouls before the first quarter is already over. And Denver also shoots just 10 of 36 from the field, from 3, I should say, and they get the win. So 3 reasons right there why that's a really good win for Denver. Jokic was horrible. Then Aaron Gordon picks up the early foul trouble. And then 10 of 36 from 3 for Denver, and they still win. And again, I see some of you over here in the chat. I appreciate you chiming in. I see some people telling me that there's like a notification I could give you. I appreciate the feedback that'll notify you guys I'm on. I'm still working through the kinks in this thing. I don't have 100% everything down, but I appreciate you for finding me. Regardless, we'll do a better job of promoting in the future and hopefully do a bunch of post-game shows as well. Although I'm really tired. I'm not used to having all this energy up late where I have to perform. Usually I'm watching like the last quarter of this game on my bed with a little notepad. So Denver wins despite all that stuff. And again, Jokic, the triple-double, 25 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, but 5 turnovers. He had 4 in the first quarter. He was absolutely atrocious. And that's kind of when I knew that Denver was in good shape heading into the half, because at the half, Jokic was god-awful. He was getting outscored by Gobert 10-6 at the half. And you knew that Jokic wasn't going to continue to play that way throughout the course of the game. So if Denver was tied at the half with Minnesota with that performance for Jokic, you knew they were probably going to pull away here in the second half. And then Jamal Murray was great. Now, Jamal Murray wasn't efficient. He was 7-22 from the field, but he got to the line 16 times. He knocked all of them down, finished 30.7 assists. And really, with Murray, it's the complete opposite of what he did, if you recall, back in 2024, when this series went 7 games and Denver ended up losing and blowing that big lead on their home court. I think it was like a 20-point second half lead. They ended up blowing it, weren't able to repeat as champions. One of the reasons is that Jamal Murray was god-awful. Murray was 3 of 18 in one game. He was 4 of 18 in another. He was god-awful in that series. Off to a good start here. I thought he was the best member of the Nuggets today, even better than Jokic. And I also see some other people here mentioning Wembanyama, me having him on second team. I'll address that at the end of the show because I got crucified for that online here today, but I stand by it 100% as to why I had him on second team instead of first team, even though I had him third in my MVP voting. I will address that for those of you that are here to talk about that at the end of the program. So Murray, fantastic today. Aaron Gordon really is the game changer for Denver. You saw that defensively, especially the energy that he brings. There's not too many, like you can list all the power forwards, and certainly there's more talented power forwards than Aaron Gordon. There's not a guy that fits in next to Jokic more, and there's not a guy that they need defensively more than Aaron Gordon. His health and Peyton Watson's health are going to be the two keys for Denver. Because offensively, this team, Jokic and Jamal Murray just alone are good enough offensively to win an NBA championship. The issue with this team is going to be, can they defend? They defended today against a really good Minnesota team. Aaron Gordon, I thought, was the main reason. He's their best defender. Peyton Watson's their second best defender. Bruce Brown's their third best defender. So the key to Denver making this run is not offensively. That's going to be there with Jokic and Murray with their eyes closed. It's going to be, can Aaron Gordon stay on the floor? Can Peyton Watson get back? And can Bruce Brown continue to look like Bruce Brown and how he looked today? Just nice to see him refreshed after the stop in Toronto, in Indiana, where he was playing for some bad teams that weren't competing. Nice to see him back in Denver, where he looks rejuvenated, and he's certainly going to help them off the bench. So that's really, from the Denver side, what stuck out. A couple of things that stuck out from the Minnesota side as we run through all these games, and then I'll get you my Wembanyama thoughts on second team All-NBA at the conclusion here. One is Rudy Gobert was absolutely fantastic today. Really, if he's able to manipulate Jokic and hold Jokic to what he did today, again, which is crazy because Jokic did have a 25-point triple-double, but a ton of turnovers, wasn't necessarily efficient. And the reason is because of Rudy Gobert. The guy's won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. I have voted for Rudy Gobert 5 times. I had him third on my ballot this year, only behind Wembanyama first and Chet second. And I also had him first team All-NBA. This is one of the great defensive players of all time. He did a great job on Jokic today. He actually held his own offensively as well. Like I said, he was outscoring Jokic at the half, which is saying something. The one thing I don't understand from a Chris Finch perspective is, why not just match the Jokic minutes with Gobert the entire time? you saw the opportunities there where Jokic had Randall on him and some other guys, and that's when Jokic was able to get some easier buckets. So that was one thing I didn't like from a Chris Finch perspective, is just match the Jokic minutes with Rudy Gobert. There were times that where Gobert was out of the game and Jokic was in, and then vice versa, where Jokic was out of the game and Gobert was in. Don't waste Gobert when Jokic is out of the game. Didn't like that. A couple of things here towards the tail end as well. Now, the game might have been decided anyway. I did not like the Julius Randle game. One, they're not defending behind the three-point line. He's going to have to knock down some open shots here in order for Minnesota to have a chance, at least to keep the defense honest. And then down the stretch. And again, maybe the game was even already over, but that stupid foul on Aaron Gordon, really twice in the final minute and a half when the game still held in the balance, only because Gordon was getting under his skin. He fouled him at one point. I think it was a 7-point game with about a minute and a half left. You're not out of it completely. And he fouls Gordon before they even inbound the basketball, which gave them a free foul shot. Okay. And then he gives Gordon a hard time getting the ball across half court, did a great job defensively, and then fouled him again after like 15 seconds went off the clock. So I thought not a good game from from Julius Randle as far as the outside shot, and then down the stretch made some bad decisions as well. The big question heading into this one was Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. How were they going to look health-wise? I thought McDaniels looked fantastic, especially in the first quarter. Got off to a really good start. Edwards was okay. Didn't play great, 22.7 of 19, is going to need to be better. Grimaced a couple of times. They even mentioned it on the broadcast. But again, this is a guy that, and this is what I don't understand. This is a guy that guys like Rich Paul, Carmelo Anthony said was the best player in the sport. Now, I highly disagree with that. But those guys said that Anthony Edwards is the best player in the sport. Jokic didn't even play well today. And Anthony Edwards wasn't better than Jokic. And he certainly wasn't as good as Jamal Murray. Now, granted, he missed 11 of the last 14 games, but I got people like Rich Paul, Carmelo Anthony telling me that, Anthony Edwards is the best player in the sport. He wasn't better than Jamal Murray today, and he wasn't better than Jokic, even though Jokic played one of his bad games. And again, that's what I would be nervous about if I was Minnesota. You got a bad Jokic game, a sloppy Jokic game, and you still ended up losing. And you lost the Jokic minutes by 3, which can't happen, especially because Valanciunas doesn't even look like he should be out there on the floor. All right, so that's the Lakers and Rockets game to start, followed by Denver and Minnesota. We'll touch on the Knicks and the Hawks game next, and then we'll end with the game that started the day off. That was Cleveland and Toronto. But New York gets the 113-102 win. This one supposed to be the tightest series in the Eastern Conference, and again, none of the games were close today. But this was supposed to be the biggest, the most interesting one, where Atlanta could have a shot. Even on my own show, Sirius XM NBA Radio, NBA Today, 4 to 7 Eastern Time, Eddie Johnson picked the Hawks to win this series. I'm not going that far, but I thought New York would have some difficulty. This one would go 6. And then we do this amid a little bit of a controversy earlier today as well. I don't know if you guys saw those comments from former NBA player Danny Green, who said he's switching his pick in the Eastern Conference to the Celtics from the Knicks because he says that there's some chemistry issues within the Knicks locker room. Not everybody is crazy about the coach, which, shocker, the same thing happened last year. Remember, you got 2 guys complaining about Tom Thibodeau in that locker room last year as well. What the hell did I hit on this thing? Something with balloons. I don't know. I hit something by accident. My apologies. But you got Thibodeau apparently had some issues with him last year. Now you got this Danny Green, report, I guess. I don't know if he's not necessarily Shams, not an insider, but he's saying there's some issues in the locker room. And then stuff I had heard, like guys frustrated with how much ball pounding Jalen Brunson does. So I guess there is a little bit of turmoil now heading into the postseason with the Knicks, just as I had heard a little bit of that last year. One of the reasons I picked against them in that Celtics series, but they were still able to get through it. They get through the game here today, and Brunson came out firing in the first quarter. I mean, he was just so after the first quarter, but first quarter, 19 of his 28 points, 8 of 11 from the field in the first quarter against a very good defense. I mean, you're going up against Dyson Daniels. You're going up against a defense that over the last 2 months was second best in the entire NBA. And that's how Brunson comes out. That's exactly what you wanted to see in the first quarter from Brunson, especially because I had said Brunson headed into the postseason with the most pressure. I had him number 1 on my list. I had Durant number 2. Now, with Durant, I just had pressure on him to get out of the first round. With Brunson, he had pressure to get all the way to the NBA Finals. And he came out of the gates. He looked absolutely fantastic today. So you knew he would. Brunson's a hell of a player. I had him third team All NBA this year. So you expect it, okay? Especially in big games. One of the better big game players in the sport. So the question, I think, coming in was, is Karl Anthony Towns going to be aggressive? How many shots is Karl Anthony Towns going to get? Is he going to look for a shot? Are they going to look for him? And it didn't start off good. I mean, he started off 1 of 6, did Karl Anthony Towns. But then he finishes 6 of 13 overall, 25 points, 19 of them coming in the second half. So really, you got Brunson in the first half. You got Karl Anthony Towns in the second half. And that answered a big question with Karl Anthony Towns. He plays like that throughout the course of the entire postseason. New York will be problematic here for everybody. Josh Hart, defensively, fantastic on Jalen Johnson. Because one of the questions I had coming in about Jalen Johnson is he going to let the general public know who he is? For example, after the game tonight, you heard the Knicks fan, which, rubs you a little bit the wrong way. Now, I love the Knicks fan. They're passionate. And I know these people aren't necessarily representative of all Knicks fans, but they're chanting at the game, bleep Trae Young. They're doing the same thing outside the arena. Trae Young's not there anymore. So the reason I bring that up is, are they going to associate this team with Jalen Johnson? Is Jalen Johnson going to make sure when you think Atlanta Hawks, you think Jalen Johnson? Tonight he didn't. 23.7 rebounds, 3 assists. This is a guy who's racked up more triple-doubles than anybody not named Nikola Jokic. He was just 8 of 19 from the floor. Now, that's not just a Jalen Johnson, is he ready for the moment type of thing. It's MSG. Josh Hart was fantastic. I thought he was their best defensive player today. Even though Anunoby is the one that's going to get the All-NBA defensive votes, Hart was fantastic. That's what he did to Jalen Johnson. He also had the 14 rebounds, the 5 assists. Gets the ball, pushes it up, pushes the pace. I thought he was great today. And then on the flip side, a guy I did have on one of my ballots, this one for most improved this year, I had Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's been fantastic. He burned you. If you're a Knicks fan, you know what he did a couple of weeks ago. He gave you the 36 points against the Knicks in the 3-point loss. He was the best player on the floor in that game for both teams. But tonight, 17 points, 6 of 17 from the field. He didn't show up. Really, the only guy I would give a very good grade to for Atlanta in this one was C.J. McCollum. McCollum was fantastic. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker needs to be better, as does Jalen Johnson. And New York gets the victory. They're off to a good start. Like I said, collision course with the Celtics in the second round, and that'll be an awesome series if Boston can get by Philadelphia and if New York can take care of Atlanta. All right, so those are the first 3 games. We've run through them all briefly as we're trying something new. It's a Turbidity Crashes Out post-game show. As I try and get some energy late, I think the energy is going well as of right now. But this is just a brief synopsis, and then obviously we'll do the real intense game breakdowns, 4 to 7 Eastern time on NBA Today, Sirius XM, NBA Radio. All right, so let me wrap it up with Toronto-Cleveland. Then I'll get to this controversy where everybody was fighting against me on social media today, and I'm getting all sorts of crap for voting Wembanyama second team All-NBA, okay? So here's what I'll say about Toronto and Cleveland. This is the series I was least looking forward to in the East. In the West, the series I was looking least forward to was Houston and the Lakers, all right? And that was before Durant went out. Now I guess it's a little bit juicier because maybe it'll be tight now. But Toronto, Cleveland, the Eastern Conference, I think Toronto is the worst team. Apologies to our friends up north. I think Toronto is the worst team in the Eastern Conference postseason. And it showed today. They lose 126 to 113. complicating matters is you get to the postseason, just like the Durant knee issue, all of a sudden you're without your starting point guard in Emmanuel Quickley. And just like with Houston, Houston's not a good offense anyway. Houston's offense is putrid anyway. Then you lose your best player. That's the same thing here with Toronto. Toronto doesn't have a good offense. They're based off defense. That's how Toronto wins games. Then all of a sudden they lose their point guard. So it makes the offense even harder to create. So that's an issue there for them in this one. And then, the problem for them is they shot 13. They're a bad offense. They shot 13 to 27 from three. They still end up losing. All right, so you're not going to win under those circumstances when Scotty Barnes, rarely hits threes, and I think he had 3 in the first quarter. You as a team go 13 to 27, you still lose. That's not a good sign. But this one was close for a half. Third quarter, Cleveland pulls away. They outscore him 36 to 22. And Max Strus, think about this. Strus missed the first, 67 games of the year? Strus misses the first 67 games of the year. He today was the guy that turned things around. 24 points, 8 of 10 from the field. He was fantastic. But again, Cleveland's offense isn't what you're concerned about. Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Strus, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen catching lobs. Their offense is fine. The issue with Cleveland is, can they stop anybody? You're not going to learn that against Toronto. Toronto is now, after the loss today, Toronto's 5 of 23 against the top 4 teams in the East and the top 6 teams in the Western Conference. 5 and 23. Toronto's a mess. So Cleveland should have handled them easily like they did today. And then the last thing I'll say about this is Brandon Ingram takes one shot in the second half and then doesn't make it internally, the complains publicly, essentially about Darko Rajakovic, his head coach, saying that, he was used as a screener and that's what the coach wanted to do. So that's not a good sign. But again, like also with Toronto, of all the teams in the postseason, do they not have the worst best player, right? Like even back into the Western Conference, 8th seed is Phoenix. Devin Booker's a lot better than Brandon Ingram. 7th seed is Deni Avdija. Deni Avdija is a lot better than Brandon Ingram or Scotty Barnes, whoever you assume is the best player on Toronto. But regardless, and a lot of times you'll say, go into a postseason series, who's the best player? That's the team that has a major edge. Toronto certainly does not have a big-time best player. All right, final thing I'm going to address here, and this is something I've addressed on the show in the past, but I was taking a lot of crap for this earlier today, and that's from the San Antonio fan. And I'll be honest with you, a couple of years ago, if you're not familiar with my background, I had called the Oklahoma City Thunder the black eye of the NBA. Now, a lot of people think I look stupid because Oklahoma City went on to win the championship this past year, and they're the favorites to go ahead and win again this year. I, in fact, am picking Oklahoma City to win the championship, but I maintain that they were and still are the black eye of the NBA because when Oklahoma City did was they purposely lost for multiple years in order to build this juggernaut. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't a smart thing to do. It was the smart thing to do, and not only did Presti do it, basically the same thing as Philadelphia did with the process, but unlike Philadelphia and Sam Hinkie and Brian Colangelo and Elton Brand and Daryl Morey, is he hit on all the picks. So he tanked, then he hit on all the picks, including the second rounders. So what they did was smart, but it was not smart for the league. It was bad for the league. It was a black eye for the league, and now it's coming to fruition because you're seeing all these other teams try and copy what Oklahoma City did, and that means we have 10 teams tanking. So I stand behind the black eye of the NBA comments in regards to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, with that said, as a result, the Oklahoma City Thunder fan is not a big fan of me. And they can get very lewd on social media. Even when I went down there in person last year to cover the finals, some fans lewd. One employee from the team gave me a hard time as well. But for the most part, I loved my experience down there. Everybody was great. I love Oklahoma City. It's one of my favorite places to cover a finals. The fans were intense in the arena. And then when they saw me in the public, most of them were nice and stopped by and chatted. And plus, it was nice to be outside of a major city like San Francisco or Boston, where I lived. It was actually relaxing. So I enjoyed my experience at Oklahoma City outside of eating Italian. One of our producers wanted to eat Italian in Oklahoma City. You have a steak in Oklahoma City. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is I got more hate on social media today and death threats today from people about putting Wembanyama on second team All NBA than I did for not voting Shea MVP either of the last 2 years or for calling the Thunder the black eye of the NBA the last couple of seasons. And I still got more hate and death threats from San Antonio for voting Wembanyama third for MVP and second team All NBA. And I knew when I did this that I might be the only person to do this. But I hold steadfast that this should be done historically consistent. And I know other people out there as well that feel the same way, but they wouldn't go as far as I did with Wembanyama on second team. They basically said, well, he could play the forward position. He could play next to Jokic. They could work on a team together. Well, whatever. The reason I don't care is because I could have put Bill Russell at power forward next to Wilt as my center back in 1964, but I wasn't allowed that option if I was voting back then, which I wouldn't because I was not alive. But one of those guys had to get screwed as a result of that. So then historically, you go back and you look, and we're going to compare Wembanyama, Jokic, Embiid to Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, and we're going to say, well, how come Wilt and Russell only made this many All-NBA teams, first teams, but, Embiid and Jokic and Wembanyama all made these like first-team All-NBAs? And then we're going to say, well, they must be better because they made more first teams. Well, that's not fair to those guys. It's not fair, and this is the example I use the most, is Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing in 1994 was voted fifth for MVP. Fifth for MVP. So in modern day, using these rules where it's positionless, you would typically think that Patrick Ewing would make first team All NBA. But back in 1994, Patrick Ewing didn't make first, second, or third team All NBA. Why? Because the four guys that finished ahead of him in the MVP voting were Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Scottie Pippen, and Shaquille O'Neal. So 3 other centers and 1 forward. So in that case, it was Hakeem or David Robinson first team, the other second team, Shaq third team. So Shaq had to be third team, despite the fact he was top 4 in the MVP voting. How is that fair to Shaq? How is it fair to Patrick Ewing? How is it fair to David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, where they all couldn't be on first team? It's not fair. And I want to be able to have all that on record. Who is the best center in 2026? Who was the second best center? Who was the third best center? In this case, third best center was Jalen Duren. I had Jalen Duren third team All-NBA. All right, who were the 2 best guards? Who were the 2 best forwards? That's another reason I'll probably tick some Piston fans off, is because I had Cade Cunningham second team. Now, I had Cade Cunningham top 5 MVP, but I had 2 guards ahead of him. I had SGA and I had Cade Cunningham. Meanwhile, I didn't have Kawhi or Jaylen Brown in my top 5 MVP, but I had them first team because they were the 2 best forwards in my estimation. So I hope that makes sense. I don't expect, if you're a Spurs fan, that you'll accept it. You're still going to be upset with me. I am looking at some of your comments now. It's getting a little bit easier for me to look at some of your comments as I get the hang of this. But I do appreciate you all stopping by. You got my reason there for those looking as to why I voted Wembanyama second team. I hope you will buy it as my reasoning. And let me just say this on Wembanyama before we close. And I was expecting to just do all this on post-game stuff. But I think Wembanyama is going to be as good as it gets. I think as soon as next year, he might be the best player in the sport. I would root for San Antonio to win the championship this year. I love the guy. I've interviewed him. He is as engaging as a young superstar as we've had in the league in years. He's going to be a perfect face for the NBA. I voted for him as the Defensive Player of the Year. I have said that I think he could displace the tandem of Bill Russell and Hakeem Olajuwon as the greatest defensive player ever. Love Wembanyama. I think he's the second best player this year. But I had him third for MVP because of the minutes and because I didn't like the fact he took the last day of the season off when it was an important game for San Antonio, which could have helped him avoid Denver in the second round. But I think he's the second best player already. There's only one better. That's Jokic. He's better than SGA. He's a better player than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He has a bigger impact on his team than SGA. Not that SGA is not great, but SGA is a great scorer. Wembanyama can score. Wembanyama blocks shots. Wembanyama can rebound. Wembanyama has got a different gravity, both offensively and defensively. So big Wembanyama fan. All right, so big takeaway from today. Not a great slate of games. The Durant injury stinks. I think the Lakers now win that series as a result. Minnesota lost a golden opportunity because Jokic didn't play very well. Denver still wins, so that's bad as well. No surprises to me with Knicks Hawks. No surprises to me with Cleveland and Toronto. I will try and do this. It looks like the reaction was pretty good. We're getting more viewers here moving forward. Hopefully you guys will continue to tune in. I'll figure out, I thank you for putting in the chat, how to notify you when I'm going to be on. Maybe I'm doing a bad job of that. I'm just getting used to the technical stuff. I'm an idiot that just knows how to use a microphone, not the other stuff. All right, thanks for stopping by, guys. I'm going to the Celtics and Sixers game tomorrow, so not sure if I'll do a post game then, but we'll try and do as many as these moving forward. Make sure you like it and you subscribe. I think that's what you're supposed to do whenever I watch YouTube shows. That's what people say. We appreciate our sponsor in Deepak. I'm not wearing one of his suits today, just a t-shirt because I'm ready to go to bed. But Deepak at DCLA, bydcla.com is where you'll find his suits. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the games tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to Celtics Sixers being there and then getting home, being on my couch for the other three. We'll talk to you either tomorrow or here on Turbity Crashes Out on YouTube, or we'll talk to you Monday, Sirius XM NBA Radio, 4 to 7 Eastern Time with Eddie Johnson. Thanks for the support, everybody. Bye-bye.